You hear it all the time. We're told that Russia and the West live in two completely different realities, almost like they're on two separate planets. Different values, different culture, different everything. And yes, sure, there are differences between the two. But honestly, the more time you spend here, the more you realize that Russia and the West are not as different as people think. Hi, my name is Johnny. I'm from England and I've been living in Russia for nearly 8 years. In this video, I want to walk you through 7 different cultural observations I've made over that time. Things that show just how many of the same cultural touchstones, as well as the same issues and problems, exist on both sides. Stuff you'll recognize whether you're in Moscow, Manchester, or Milwaukee. Let's go. So it's currently the first week of April when I'm filming this, and it's snowing. I thought winter was over, but it looks like it's come back. I can't wait for summer. All right, number 1, let's start with something fun. Fashion. Because right now, walking through Moscow feels like stepping into a time machine. Not to the Soviet past, not to some imperial throwback, but to the early 2000s. Y2K is back in a big way. Girls are wearing crop tops, low-rise bottoms, tube tops, tennis skirts. Absolutely everyone is wearing baggy jeans. Skinny jeans are well in the past. And the guys are in on it too. Cargo pants, metallic fabrics, cartoon print t-shirts, even full tracksuits. And here's what's interesting. It's not some uniquely Russian trend. It's totally global. You could be in a vintage market in Shoreditch, or a high school in the US, or a rooftop bar in Berlin, and you would see the exact same fits. Gen Z around the world is in love with the Y2K aesthetic, that strange blend of trashy, ironic, and nostalgic that's somehow stylish again. And the reason? Social media, Instagram, Pinterest. They've completely flattened the global fashion map. There's no longer a trickle down from fashion capitals like London, New York, and Paris to everyone else. Now it's a trend explosion instead. Something goes viral on TikTok within a week. Kids in Moscow, Tokyo, and Toronto are all wearing the same stuff. And what's wild? It's how Russia used to be seen as catching up with Western fashion. People used to say that trends took years to arrive here. Just think of blue jeans in the Soviet Union. But now everything is synced together. Sometimes I'll spot a teenager here walking around Moscow and I'll think, didn't I just see that exact outfit in a vlog from someone in London or something? Or on a, I don't know, a Pinterest board? It shows how culturally interconnected everything has become here between the West and Russia. And even when politics like pull in opposite directions, the algorithm doesn't care. Fashion used to be a one-way street. The West influenced Russia, but now it's all one giant feedback loop. Style has no borders, just For You pages. If you're hearing all that noise in the background, that's because it's 6 p.m. on a Monday evening. Everyone's heading home from work. You can hear the sound of tires on the wet streets. Moscow can be so loud at times like this. All right, number 2. Now this one gets a bit more serious, but it's very important. Let's talk about the news and how nobody believes the news anymore. In the West, there's this growing sense that the news isn't telling you the whole truth. And it's not just among conspiracy theorists or fringe internet types. It's mainstream now. People feel like there's always a spin, there's always a narrative being pushed. In Russia, though, that kind of skepticism isn't new. People here have been riding that wave for decades. Russian society, especially anyone who lived through the Soviet Union, has a kind of built-in cynicism when it comes to official narratives. It's almost like a second nature. You hear something on the news, you nod along, but in the back of your mind, you're already questioning it. You know there's more to the story. You assume there's a gap between what's being said on the news and what's actually happening in real life. That instinct to doubt, to read between the lines, that's baked into daily life here. Compare that to somewhere like my home country, the UK, where for a long time people took the BBC almost as gospel. It was the voice of reason, it was the voice of authority, but that trust has eroded. And whether it's Fox News, CNN, or the BBC, depending on who you ask, they'll all be seen as biased now. One leans left, one leans right, the other will say whatever it takes to hold on to viewers or to drive engagement. And truth has become a product, something packaged, something polished, something sold to an audience. So what happens? The same things in both countries, in Russia and in the UK or in the US. Nobody trusts what they're told anymore. They only trust what they see with their own two eyes. Or, more realistically, they trust what they see on their phone screens. Instead of switching on the evening news, they scroll, they flick through Telegram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, whatever platform gives them something that feels more real, more raw, more unfiltered. In Russia, Telegram has become the go-to, not just for memes or gossip, but for serious news, for political analysis, even on-the-ground updates during big events. In the West, it's probably TikTok. And then along with Twitter and of course YouTube, people follow creators they trust more than journalists with decades of experience. And ironically, it's often memes that hit the hardest. A single joke image can cut through the noise and summarize a complex situation better than a carefully scripted segment on primetime TV. So now, both in Russia and the West, we're living in this strange new media reality where traditional media has lost a bit of its control and the old gatekeepers are trying, but they're not gatekeeping anymore. People are picking and choosing their sources, finding their own truth, whether it's accurate or not. That's the shift, really. It's not about information anymore. A lot of it's just about belief. And increasingly, belief is shaped not by respected institutions, but whatever goes viral. So it snowed here all last night and it stopped today, but it's just started again. You can see it's almost a sunset here in Moscow. Very beautiful. But that snow is not what anyone wanted. Everyone was waiting for summer. All right, for number 3, while the sunset lights my face, let's talk about economics, specifically family economics, because in Russia and in the West, young people just can't afford to start families anymore. And this is one of the biggest shifts the world is seeing everywhere. In many cases, it's become brutally hard for young people to build a stable life, especially when it comes to starting a family. In Russia, this is one of Putin's favorite talking points. He brings it up constantly, the so-called demographic crisis. Fewer people are getting married early, fewer people are having kids, and it's not because people have stopped wanting families, it's because people have stopped being able to afford them. Simple as that. Now, to be fair to Russia, the Russian government is actually throwing quite a bit of money at this problem. They do a lot more for parents and prospective parents than most Western governments do. For example, there's the maternal capital, which is a financial benefit for families that they get after the birth or adoption of a child. It's money, but it's not free money to spend on anything. You can't just cash it out of a cash machine. You can put it towards certain things like housing, education, improving living conditions. There's also the Soviet legacy here of free kindergartens, which are still widely available all over the country, and more recently there's been a new financial benefit, a new nationwide child benefit system that scales payments based on income and the child's age. So the poorer you are, the more support you get. And if you're a young family and you're hoping to have a child, people are also thinking about what's called a family mortgage, which is basically a subsidized housing loan with a interest rate that's way lower than the terrifying 21% key rate that the banks offer to everyone else. So people think that, okay, if I have a kid in the future, I will be able to afford my mortgage. So in theory, that sounds pretty generous, but in practice, it's still not enough for a lot of people, not by a long shot. You might get help with the mortgage, but how's your income doing? You might get free kindergarten, but what happens when your job barely pays enough to cover all the other expenses, let alone the idea of maybe having a second child? It's like getting a discount on a meal you still can't really afford. And if you think that sounds bad, look at the US or the UK, where it's even worse. Childcare alone can cost more than your rent. In London or New York, daycare prices are absurd. People talk about starting a family like it's the matter of settling down and making a decision. But for most people I know, starting a family is not a decision. It's a dream, one that gets pushed back year after year after year until eventually it just doesn't happen. And that's not even touching a problem unique to the UK, US, not Russia. It's the student debt situation. In the US, it's a full-blown crisis. In the UK, it's a quiet burden you carry for decades and decades. You graduate, you get a job, and because of those problems with debt, you still find yourself living with flatmates into your 30s, not for fun, not to be quirky, not because you want to, but because rent is insane and wages just haven't kept up. So people ask, why aren't millennials having kids? Like it's some sort of cultural shift, or like we're all just too selfish or too online to care. But the reality is we literally can't afford to. It's not about vibes, it's maths. And this isn't a Western problem. It's not really a Russian problem, it's a global problem. Whether you're in Perm or Plymouth or Kazan or Kansas City, this whole model of start a home, stable job, 2 kids by 30, it's become less of a plan, and for so many people more of a pipe dream. And I think young people on both sides of this so-called East-West divide can feel pretty cheated. I'm 30 myself, I've got friends in London, I've got friends here in Moscow, people who have done everything right. They went to uni, they got decent jobs, they avoided all that drama, but they still feel like they're constantly treading water. They'd love to have kids, they'd love to own a home, whether that's a house or just a flat, but the numbers are just simply not adding up. Okay, next up, a change of gears. I want to talk about online shopping. And that's because if there's one thing that truly unites Russia and the West, it's the complete takeover of online shopping. In Russia, platforms like Wildberries and Ozon have gone from niche to essential in just a few years. They're not just websites anymore, they're total ecosystems. You can buy anything. You can buy a new fridge, a frying pan, a tracksuit and a packet of seeds all in the same order, and they'll get delivered to a spot 5 minutes from your flat, sometimes faster than you can order a pizza. Their pickup points are everywhere. Literally every other building in Moscow has one. But it's not just here. Post offices in remote villages in the middle of nowhere that look like they haven't changed since the 80s now have purple Wildberries lockers in the corner, or someone behind the desk scanning the barcode in your Ozon app and handing you your parcel. People are so used to ordering online now that even babushkas in rural towns and villages have gotten the hang of scanning a QR code and picking up their parcels. Delivery is cheap, it's fast, it's reliable. In Moscow, same day or next day is totally normal. Even in places hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest big city, the logistics somehow still work. It's one of the quiet triumphs of modern Russia. The internet economy has built its own arteries. In the West, well, Amazon has basically become a public utility. I've had friends in the UK who order something in the morning and it arrives that same evening, delivered by some bloke who's been driving all day for almost no pay. The effect on daily life is the same in both the West and in Russia. Fewer people bother with physical shopping unless they really need to try something on or they want to kill time. Shopping centres have become more like theme parks, I guess, places to hang out, grab a coffee, see a movie, but actual purchases, they all happen on phones. And what's interesting now is how similar user behaviour is in the West and Russia. Despite this totally different branding, the ritual is identical in the West and in Russia. Scroll, tap, add to cart, pay, wait 24 hours. In the UK, it gets delivered to your door. In Russia, to a pickup point on the ground floor of your building. It's all the same. So my arms are now super tired of carrying my camera, so I'm going to do the rest of this video stood here by Metro Chistye Prudy. Just after sunset, you can see rush hour Moscow behind me. So now I'm going to talk about number 5, and number 5 is one that surprises people outside of Russia, and that is the coffee revolution. Because historically, Russia was always a tea drinking country. You'd sit down with your friends, family, you'd put the kettle on, you'd slice some lemon, maybe bring out the jam or a plate of sweets. It wasn't really just a drink. Much like in England, tea was how people processed the day. It's how they hosted guests. It's how they warmed up after walking in from the cold in the winter. It's a ritual, it was comfort. It was woven into everyday life, whether you lived in a Moscow apartment or in a Siberian village. But in the 2000s, things started to shift a little because Starbucks arrived in Moscow in 2007, and it wasn't the first cafe serving coffee by any means, but that was one that really changed the game here, because suddenly coffee wasn't just a bitter drink you grabbed at the train station. Coffee culture was imported into Russia. It was American, which back then was seen as aspirational, although of course not anymore. But soon after, local cafes began popping up, first copying that Western style and then evolving into something of their own. You started seeing cappuccinos and lattes on menus next to black tea and compote. Over time, flat whites, cold brew, matcha, every other hipster drink imaginable made its way into Russia. And now coffee is like totally taken over Moscow. It's literally everywhere. You've got tiny takeaway kiosks squeezed into underpasses selling coffee for commuters, and you've got high-end cafes with minimalist Scandinavian interiors, and you've got food trucks serving single origin espresso in minus 10 degrees. You've got apps where you can order your cappuccinos before you actually get to the coffee shop, and when you arrive, it's there waiting for you. Baristas here in Russia casually ask you if you want normal milk or alternative milk. And they don't mean soy milk, they mean oat, coconut, almond, everything. It's not just about the caffeine here anymore, it's all about this aesthetic. It's a cultural thing. And if you compare it to the UK or the US, it's basically the same story, just on a different timeline. In both places, coffee has caught up with tea. Cafes started replacing pubs as places people go to hang out, especially for younger people. And the so-called third wave of coffee, the artisanal, Instagrammable, ethically sourced movement. Today, if you walk through Moscow, you walk through London, and you don't look at the language, you might not even notice the difference. The cafe culture is near identical, same plywood furniture, the same baristas with tattoos and beanies, the same oat milk lattes, same people sat in front of MacBooks, headphones in, trying to look productive. It's not Russian, it's not British, it's not American anymore, it's now global. It's everywhere, including here in Moscow. And something else I want to talk about when it comes to that is internet culture, or more specifically, memes. Because a lot of people imagine the Russian internet as this completely separate ecosystem which is totally cut off from the West, with its own humour, its own trends. And of course there are differences. Facebook and TikTok are not so popular here, while Instagram and Telegram are huge. And if there's one thing that proves that we're all living in the same digital fishbowl, it's memes. And I don't care what platform you use, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, Telegram, VK, the meme formats are identical. That SpongeBob image everywhere, the distracted boyfriend, it's still alive and well, that guy sweating over the two buttons, that one refuses to die here in Russia, the Drake hotline bling meme, yep, that's a thing here too. And the humour, it's weirdly universal, it's sarcastic, it's self-depreciating, it's absurd. Russians love irony as much as Brits do. Gen Z in Moscow send the same memes as Gen Z in Manchester. There's no translation needed for "this is fine" while the world burns around you. Everyone knows it. And sure, the context might shift. Maybe the punchline is about Russian news instead of American politics, but the memes are the same. Maybe it's about Moscow Metro instead of the New York subway, but the structure, the vibe, the shared visual language of memes, it's the same. So yeah, Russia and the West might have different politics, they might have different histories, they might have totally different media landscapes, but online we're all sending the same SpongeBob image, just to different group chats. And finally, the seventh thing I want to talk about is another negative one, I suppose. It's burnout. Because in Russia, people are grinding. 2 jobs, maybe 3. Freelance gigs, side hustles, tutoring, delivering stuff, running online shops, all while prices keep creeping up and stability feels like a distant memory. No savings, no real security, just momentum. And in the UK or the US, the same story, just wrapped in slicker branding. You've got the tech bro version, the influencer version, the LinkedIn optimized version, rise and grind, build your brand, turn your passion into income, all the same hamster wheel stuff. We've normalized this life where rest is guilt and downtime is failure, and slowing down feels like falling behind. You're supposed to wake up at 5 a.m, drink celery juice, then crush it at work, go to the gym, learn a language, start a podcast, post daily on social media, all while maintaining a perfect relationship and a spotless flat. And if you can't, well, that is your fault. You try harder. But here's the thing. No one's thriving. Everyone's exhausted. Everyone is anxious. Many are living paycheck to paycheck, whether they're paid in rubles, pounds, or dollars. Burnout used to be a symptom of a bad job, and now it's the default setting of modern life in the UK, the US, and Russia. It's just the background noise is different. Whether it's Moscow traffic, whether it's the tube at rush hour, we're all still feeling the same things. And it's not just an economic problem, it's a cultural one. It's not a Western problem, it's not a Russian problem, it's a global cultural thing. So yeah, sorry about that rant, but I have to say that Russia and the West, they're different, and no one is saying they aren't. I especially am not. But when you zoom in on how people live, what they wear, what they laugh at, what they stress about, then you start to see it. The same stresses, the same jokes, the same burnt out mornings with a cup of coffee. The language is different, but the life is not so much. If you like this video, you might enjoy this one where I talk about reasons why foreigners should and should not move to Russia. And if you really, really, really like this video, please sign up as a member of my channel or send me a one-time donation on Buy Me a Coffee. The link to that is in the description. If you're Russian, you can also subscribe to me on Boosty. Thanks.